Hi, my name is Amanda Lentz, and this is my discussion board 3 for diversity in the United States. For this assignment, we were supposed to gather information on 25 different magazine covers. I wanted to make it as random as possible, which I know is really difficult when we're pulling the covers off of the internet ourselves. I feel like we could easily choose the magazine covers that stick out to us. So what I chose to do was do a random Google search for whatever magazine I was looking for and close my eyes and randomly choose one. That way I could get the most honest collection and all. So with that, I was very surprised that I still had 72% of the people on the covers were Caucasian. And that number really surprised me. I was expecting to see more diversity. Um, a few of those who weren't, or a few of those that weren't Caucasian were actually specialty magazines, so Essence or Ebony, things like that. So those magazines specifically are for African Americans. Um, Also, another one that was Latina, she looked white, but her name sounded Latina, so I went ahead and looked up her name, and she was Latina. So, uh, the magazines that I chose were split pretty evenly down the middle, sex-wise. I chose 12 men were represented in the covers and 13 women were represented. Um, Out of those, 54% of the women were dressed sexually suggestive. On the flip side of that, only one of the men were naked. However, it was an ESPN magazine, and they often do that. And um, when you look at the cover, it's not necessarily sexually suggestive. It's definitely has a more athletic appeal to it. You can tell by their postures and the way he was posing with the basketball. It's not while he is naked, it's not super sexual. It's more athletic as opposed to the women when their stances and the way they're looking at the camera. That's how you see them pretty sexually suggestively. Um, I looked at two different fishing magazines. One of them had a male on the cover, and one of them had a female on the cover. The male was fully dressed in athletic clothing, and the female was in a bikini. And I also looked up other fishing magazines, and that seemed to be the trend. Males fully covered, females in shorts and a bikini top or a full on bikini. I compared Boys Life and Girls Life. This is very interesting. On the Boys Life covers, the topics included things like Adventure Time and The Perfect Hike. And you would see boys hiking or in a kayak, out doing, adventurous things. As opposed to the girls' magazines, all of the girls were just smiling cutely at the camera. Those topics on the cover included fun and flirty looks or beauty bucket list. And so these are geared towards young children. The ones on the cover were young children, maybe early teens. And so you can pretty much see how, even at a young age, children are being so heavily influenced by the magazines that are available to them. I had a selection of 4 business magazines. Only one of them featured an African American on it. The other were white males. They were all dressed businesslike, including the African American. I also looked through parenting magazines. This was interesting to me. There is hardly any diversity in parenting magazines whatsoever. 95% or so of the covers were just white females smiling at their children. There was rare to find women of color, and you barely ever saw a male on the cover at all. If you did, there were a few. If you did, it was him and his full family. It wasn't just him alone with his kids, it was him with his wife, which I found to be interesting. Um, I did find one parenting cover that I really loved. It was called The Green Parent. The article I found about it is kind of negative towards the magazine, but I'm not paying attention to the magazine. I'm only paying attention to the cover. So the cover featured a very normal looking male. He had a beard, he had tattoos, and he was baby wearing. So I really appreciated the diversity that cover showed for us. Um, the most diverse magazine that I came across as a whole out of all the categories was called Gay Parents. And this magazine featured gay couples on the cover with their children. And not only were they showing gay families, but they were also so diverse. You would have African American couples who looked like Hawaiian couples. You would have interracial couples, and I really appreciated the diversity of that magazine. Um, all the teen magazines I looked up were pretty much young, pretty white girls, just looking cute. Um, I put fun and flirty as my description rather than sexually suggestive because they're teen magazines and you can tell that they're not quite the same as, let's say, adult magazines. The way they're posing isn't quite as sexual, but they are still really glammed up, and they're looking at the camera and posing their body in a flirty way. Not full on sexual, but headed in that direction. And then the final category I looked up were health magazines. I looked up Men's Health, Women's Health, and just a magazine called Health. And on these covers, I found that men were fully clothed and women were half naked, just like with pretty much every other category of magazines that we saw. The topics on the cover weren't what I would assume would be very health-like. They really ran more towards the regular adult magazines like Cosmopolitan, things like that, the topics that were being covered. But as a whole, like I said, I had 72% white, Caucasian people on the cover. And then out of my 13 women, 54% were dressed sexually suggestive. Even though the other that I had, the young teens, were flirty in their looks as well. So, yeah, thank you.